Hello, good day to you wherever you're joining us from. This is Guyana in Conversation with Akash and Freddie. It's a Sunday and I hope that you're having a wonderful Sunday. Perhaps it's leading up to the holidays for you and you are in great preparation mode. I have with me here distinguished gentleman, Mr. Freddie Kissoon. Freddie, welcome to Guyana in Conversation again.
Yeah, for the second time. Sure.
Yes. Well, Freddie, let's go back.
Before you go,
yes.
Before you go any further, can you and I just take a minute silence for those 5 fallen heroes, please?
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, Freddie, that was a great gesture of yours. So Freddie, look, let's go back and look at where we were when we had our first interview right here in the Botanical Gardens. I believe it was the 19th of November. And on that day, the situation was that Venezuela's President Maduro had already had his troops at the border of Guyana and was even building an airstrip close to the border to show his readiness for some type of physical military action to invade the Essequibo region. At the same time, Maduro had scheduled a referendum for the 3rd of December in 2023 and asking his people 5 questions, I believe, seeking support from his people to claim that the Essequibo region, we Guyanese and government were now caught in a situation where it seems imminent that Venezuela was going to invade Essequibo. And on the 1st of December, the ICJ issued a ruling forbidding any changes to the current status quo on the Essequibo regions and ruled that both parties must respect the 1899 ruling. Then on the 3rd of December, the referendum by the government of Venezuela was passed and Maduro had the support of his people to claim Essequibo. Now, it does not matter how many Venezuelans showed up to vote because the Maduro opposition claimed it was a very small turnout because we all knew one way or the other that the referendum will pass. On that same day of the 3rd of December, Maduro drew a new map of Guyana which included the Essequibo region and declared Essequibo a state or new province of Venezuela. He also issued many other actions that the Venezuelan government will immediately take since Essequibo is part of Venezuela. Then we had the helicopter crash, which raised many eyebrows of uncertainty. And on the 14th of December, 2 days ago, both presidents met in St. Vincent where both parties agreed to the commitment of peace between the 2 countries. Freddie, what really happened there from your perspective, meaning Maduro goes to St. Vincent, agrees to peace and goes back to his people when he was vigilant in his claim to the Essequibo region. What is your take on that, Freddie?
Well, thanks for doing this the second time. The first time was right here and it's a nice ambience. I need to tell you that I grew up in this garden. My mom's cousin was a full-time living curator of the gardens.
Wow.
And every midday when my mom finished cooking, she would spend the rest of the afternoon here. And so I followed her and I strayed all over this garden. And when I was studying my GCE to go into university, I studied my GCE every day in the garden. And one day I saw Forbes Burnham riding on horseback, and he looked at me and I looked at him. That was it. That's the first time I ever saw.
Did he say anything to you?
No. He just rode. So I know this garden very well. And for those who watching this video, it needs to be better landscape. It's an old, beautiful institution of Guyana, and I think it needs much more landscaping to turn it into a manifestation of pulchritude which it has the potential in which it was. Now your question, I will give my interpretation of what happened that led to the St. Vincent dialogue. President Maduro, through some stroke of psychic contortion or through some stroke of domestic exigency, decided to rattle up the border claim and held a referendum. I would think it more had to deal with domestic exigency rather than something psychically weird with him. Maduro signed an agreement with the United States for 6 months relaxation of the embargo, with the specific requirement that he release detainees unjustly jailed and allow for a gradual bureaucratic configuration that will lead to a free and fair election. And he agreed. Now there were two ideas came to him out of that agreement with the Americans. One is that he's now coming back in favor because shortly after, weeks or maybe a month after the agreement with the Americans, India bought oil from Venezuela, and Canada announced that it was normalizing relation with Venezuela. So that could have triggered the thought that, look, I could make a move in Guyana, and the moment is encouraging because countries are coming back to Venezuela. I doubt that was the reason. For me, the most compelling reason for the referendum is Maduro knows that if he backs out of that agreement with the United States, the sanctions will be reimposed and it's going to be more hardship. So what he did, as strengthening his hand with the Americans, he decided if he calls the referendum, no country turns its back on a time when it's at war. That's a time when people rally around their government. In fact, sometimes the government have an all-inclusive government with everybody. And he saw that as an opportunity to rally the Venezuelans around him. And so it gives him space to negotiate with the Americans to say, look, I am not as unpopular as you think. The devastating blow came when the referendum failed. And any referendum has to fail if you have that low turnout, because it's not voting where people are annoyed with the political parties and they don't vote. This is a referendum saying part of our country is in other people's hand and we need to take it back. And it was repudiated. And I believe it was repudiated for two reasons. Maduro is not a very popular figure in Venezuela. And secondly, people cynically and angrily said to themselves, we have a country that is in the doldrums. We have a country where basic amenities, facilities are not there. And this man is asking us to come out of our house and vote to go to war. So they rejected it. When they rejected that referendum, I think it sent Maduro into a mental tailspin. I think it destabilized him mentally. So all the saber rattling and the failed referendum, he was isolated. And I believe it was Maduro that contacted Lula. Lula had a lot of sympathy, sentiments for Chavez. Chavez was emerging as the new Fidel Castro, but with a better image in South America. And with all the major governments in the world denouncing the Venezuelan claim on Guyana and joint military exercise with the Americans, I think he contacted Lula and said, look, what is going on? What is going on here? What do we do? And I believe Lula said to him, you have made one fundamental mistake. You have encouraged an atmosphere of war in South America. South America do not need that. This is a continent that haven't had war since the Falkland Islands, and it was not in South America proper. So you've introduced a new ball game which is detrimental to South America. Secondly, Lula would have said to him, any invasion of Guyana puts Venezuela in a spot. We can't allow you to invade a country that is on the Brazilian border, that has made no aggressive claims to your territory or anything. Thirdly, I think Lula said to him, your misdirections are going to invite an American military presence in Guyana. What you think this small nation will do? America has been their traditional ally. America has its most important oil company. What you think it's going to do? It's going to invite the country's going to invite the Americans. All your configurations are wrong. You need to save face. And what I think Lula did is contacted CARICOM, because Lula, one of the most astute and admirable and liked leader around the world, actually one of my favorite leaders in the world. I can't go around the world and think of one that I will choose. I like the guy in Scotland. I think he would be second after Lula in terms of my favorite politician. So Lula contacted CARICOM and said, look, let's have a discussion on tensions, not the border. Because Lulu's foreign policy advisor would know that's his work, that Guyana was not prepared to discuss something that doesn't exist. It doesn't accept that it's a border dispute. It's Venezuela claiming that they want Guyana territory.
That's right.
And the best way to ease the pressure on Maduro was to call this dialogue in St. Vincent, where there can be a dialogue in the sense that there were 6 parties involved, but essentially a dialogue between the two men, so as to give Maduro room to save face. And that is exactly what the forum did, and that is exactly what Maduro achieved. Guyana did not go there. Guyana did not go there with a specific agenda of achieving a number of accomplishments. That was not on the agenda of Guyana. And so there's some very foolish thoughts going out in social media, in the newspaper, that what did Guyana come back with? Guyana came back with what Guyana wanted, what the world wanted, and what President Lula wanted. A definitive, conclusive, all-embracing statement from Maduro that I will not be invading Guyana. There's no prospect of that. I believe the Caribbean should be a zone of peace, and I will respect that. There is no need to worry about Venezuela aggression in Essequibo. That is what Guyana wanted. Guyana went there for a dialogue that would ease tension and that would create an avenue for these countries to be talking to each other. Guyana then achieved what it wanted. That is for Maduro to say, okay, all of this talk the past month, I will desist. And he gave his word to 5 parties: Guyana, CARICOM, CELAC, the UN General Secretary Office was represented there, and President Lula. 5 forums he gave his word to. I can't see from any angle what Guyana lost. It didn't lose anything. Guyana achieved, but I would like to think the forum presented Maduro with an achievement he wanted, to save face, and the world would back down saying, what is this guy doing? We better go on Guyana's side, we better see what we can do for Guyana. So there's no invasion anymore, there's no talk of invasion, and life goes on as usual. Guyana will go on using its oil money until the 2025 election, and Venezuela Maduro has its own problems. and that problem is a nightmare that he cannot solve, I believe he's going to lose the elections. So it was a win-win situation for both sides, but Guyana's win was more valuable. It was a win situation for Maduro because he took a burden off his shoulder. The world watching at him, and Lula pressing down on him saying, I don't want any. This is the fifth major power in the world. The fifth largest country in the world, yes, and one of the major powers in the world. The ninth largest economy. And I think Lula said, what is wrong with you? How you think Brazil could sit down and watch you take over not 10 acres or 20 or 40 acres of another country, the whole country?
That's right.
Because it's 166 square miles he will be taking out of Guyana, 83,000 square miles. That, I think, is the context in which the St. Vincent dialogue occurred.
Well, Freddie, let me give you my take on what I think. Look, here's what I think. Many may believe that Maduro went back to Venezuela empty-handed. But my belief is that Maduro got what he wanted before the meeting, and that the meeting was symbolic for the people of the world to see. I believe that the deals were made behind the closed doors with the international community, especially the USA. And the intentions of Maduro was to use the controversy and the idea of there being another possible conflict in other regions of the world for his political gains, and to get the international community to ease the trade embargo against Venezuela. But that'll be another topic. That'll be a topic for another discussion. But I think that Maduro probably went back to Venezuela with something. Do you believe that Maduro will abide by his agreement? And taking into consideration what I said, what my belief is, that I think he must have gotten something in the background.
Well, I don't know what he got, apart from what I just said, that he was facing condemnation from the world. When a country like Venezuela has terrible sanctions worldwide in it, its gold is under arrest in the UK. The people are fleeing by, I think, millions. I am not too sure what he could have taken on the table that would have helped him, except that the world probably saw that after all he got some sense about him. He went to the table, he wasn't recalcitrant, he wasn't insane, he still got some rational thinking. He could have benefited from that the perception of the world that he's not all that crazy as people feel. As to what else he got, apart from what I've said, that a burden has been taken over his shoulder, to see his presence in St. Vincent as a way of getting people to look at Venezuela and look at him in a different way, I don't think so, given the fact that he threatened to invade a country of just 800,000 people without an army that can even defeat a smaller nation than Venezuela, or even take on a smaller nation than Venezuela. You look bad in the world. But yet, despite those agreements, you just don't go over into another country and invade it like that. The other one is Gaza. I think Israel would never recover from the genocide that it has committed in Gaza. There's no turning back. The Gaza genocide has cemented the Arab world and has turned the third world against Israel. So Maduro had to lose, because in the international system, you don't go about threatening a country that's very small like Guyana, has no large army, and is not a border dispute that has been ongoing and ill-defined the past 100 years. The border boundary lines were settled and agreed upon. So I don't think Maduro took back anything, except he saved himself from, bringing on the pressure of the Americans and Brazilians. I mean, Americans were not saying anything, but it's unthinkable in terms of geostrategic politics and geopolitics in general. It's unthinkable that the superpower next door to South America would just allow a little country to be overrun, and Venezuela took it, and that's the end of it. I think most people around the world in government, in the different countries, in the foreign office, elsewhere, I think they knew Venezuela would not have invaded. Of course, we couldn't take that chance.
That's
we had
right.
to be prepared.
I agree. And that is why I think that, you know, I believe that whatever agreement was made behind closed doors are kept from all parties involved. Remember, the peace agreement states that both parties cannot, let's say, aggravate, you know, each other. So that I mean, that leaves room for one party to blame the other at any given time.
I think maybe it's impossible to have all those actors in that room with different interests, and they come to an agreement with some undisclosed concessions. I don't think the government of Guyana would have sat down there and be a party to any invisible or undeclared things in that meeting that is not in the interest of Guyana. I don't think Guyana would have given an inch if anything was to be discussed about this border. I believe Ali would have walked away.
Yes,
he would have called Mayor Motley, and he would have called Gonzalez aside and said, no, this is not the reason we've been here for. The other thing is, Guyana was not going there to make any concessions, because how did Guyana know that the opposition would have declined the invitation? And if the opposition was part of the delegation, Guyana could not have dared sign anything there that was hidden on the opposition there.
Yeah.
It was too many compartments of world society that was there for anything to be hidden. It was the UN Secretary General's office. He was represented at a very high level. It was the Brazilian government represented by the presidential advisor, CARICOM, and the Association of Caribbean Latin American Countries, CELAC. In that 6-dimension confabulation, it would have been difficult for things to be said that all 6 agreed on, and those things would not be disclosed. No, if it was just a dialogue between the two countries with their officials, maybe you could have said that.
But I also think that, you know, look, Venezuela must have made some sort of things to say, man, look, we need our sanctions lifted. Are you guys going to be working with us to do this? And that is what, you know, that is what I meant, that maybe some of the discussions would not have come out. It probably would have been taken forward that, yes, we hear your concern. Let's do this agreement now, and we're going to look at your concern at a later date.
No, that forum cannot do anything with sanctions.
Okay.
Sanctions.
No, I don't mean doing anything with sanctions.
They could not. Sanctions
I mean raising the issues and say, well, look, we know.
Sanctions is a EU, United States, and Western countries action. I think that would include Australia, Canada. But that's a EU, US in relation to rigged elections and illegal occupation of power. That I would believe for the EU and the Americans, that have to be shifted by Maduro in some way for there to be an easing of sanctions. But they give him a 6 months grace period. But again, with the condition that those things be shifted.
Yeah. But so let me ask you, Freddie. What do you believe Guyana government needs to do or continue to do to be ready for any such situation in the future?
2 things it has to do within the context of realism, not reality. There is a term in international relations called realism. In terms of realism in international affairs, Guyana would never for a day survive a Venezuelan invasion. This is a country with 800,000 people and 3,000 military people. We don't have jet fighters, we don't have tanks. No, it's no comparison. So Guyana cannot survive a Venezuelan aggression. So two things Guyana has to do. Keep its people aware of what is going on so they could be prepared and have the knowledge that they need to be patriotic. And the second thing is, at a very hectic level, at a supersonic level, they must keep their friends in the industrial system appraised of what is going on. And Guyana has some very powerful friends in the world. Remember, we are part of the Western Hemisphere, and our traditional friends have been some of the most powerful countries in the world. India, the US, Canada, the EU. Not to mention that Brazil is very key to Guyana's survival. And the United States may be the big power around this place, but Brazil would not allow an invasion of Guyana. I think that's unthinkable.
Yeah. Also, Brazil. I think with us being at the where we are positioned geologically, we offer a lot to Brazil also, because we can the port.
Geographically.
Yeah. We can offer a lot.
Akash, we made a mistake when I was at university as a freshman in the 70s. This country, both under Burnham and post-Burnham governments, that would be Hoyt, Jagan, and then Mr. Jagdeo. We were so close to a giant that after independence in 66, by 1980 or 1985, Brazil should have been like a big sister or a big brother to us, where Portuguese were taught in the schools. Brazil and us would have had a border where you could just drive through or walk through, and the trade in goods, a deep harbor port, bomb film. I think northern Brazil need a outlet to the sea that we could have provided. Northern Brazil is landlocked. When you live so close to a giant like Brazil, after 20 years of independence, Brazil should have been our closest trading partner and one of our major economic partner. This is a giant of a country that lies next door, like how you and I are. And that's a mistake, and one hopes from this onwards that there will be a closer movement between Brazil and Guyana politically and in terms of economics and even security. Brazil is just nearby. We can have our soldiers going over there every 3 months to training, just walk over.
True.
That's a mistake we made. That's not to say we shouldn't have maintained the closeness with the US. But always remember this saying in international relations: nations have permanent interests, not permanent friends. The kind of interest the United States would have in South America, Brazil wouldn't. Brazil is not an imperialist state looking to maximize the resources of its neighbors. Brazil has never been interested in that. So Brazil would be the key to this country's development in another 2025. By 50 years from now, Brazil and Guyana should be so close like Canada and the US.
I agree. And Freddie, look, this is what I think. The Guyana government needs to create and build partnerships in trade and with security guarantees.
That's common sense in international relations. You don't put your eggs in one basket.
That's right. We need to
Create a larger defense force. We need to continue to have joint exercises with our allies, and Guyana
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I interviewed Gary Best, the former head of the Army, on Wednesday, and I asked him the question. I used the word vast. Should the GDF have a vast expansion? He said he wouldn't use the word vast, but yes, one of the things he said the Army is lacking in is radar coverage of Guyana. He said Guyana is not, the Army does not have radar coverage of Guyana. It only has a select part.
And I think
He said that is needed.
I think that Guyana need to create a military base with our strongest allies in the Essequibo region. I also believe we need to work with I also believe that we need to work with Venezuela to develop trade and partnerships that will benefit both economies. So, in short, our defenses increasing, we need to strengthen our defenses by increasing our armed forces, build military partnerships with our allies, create a multiple military or create or probably we have multiple military bases in the Essequibo region with our allies, and work with Venezuela for mutual benefits of both economies, in good faith and neighboring relationships and all that. I mean, Venezuela did, a lot of us people went over there to live, and a lot of people still live there, have families living there. Well, Fred, let me ask you, do you believe that Guyana should seek from the ICJ a process to where the Venezuela-Guyana border controversy can be settled forever?
I think in another 4 years it will be settled forever. Those judges there are no foreign minister in any country in the world, including some of the smallest states like Micronesia, Nauru, small states with 300, Bermuda. None of those people will accept Venezuela's claim. The border boundary lines between the two were settled. Do you know how this border controversy came about? And some of those judges, when the ICJ meet, probably in a silent moment by themselves, they're going to laugh. This boundary line was rejected by Venezuela because they read a letter. A junior lawyer that was in the confabulation, he was not even a major part in the discussion. They have the junior lawyer that sits down and they take notes. He wrote a letter and cowardly suggested that it be opened after he died. And years after, 50 years or whatever, they open it. He said, you know what? The Russians and the Americans and the British, when they were settling this boundary line, I think they did some skullduggery that left out some land for Venezuela. He thinks. Right? And that is all the letter states. So you believe the International Commission of Jurists are going to have this man's letter, going to have the Venezuelan explanation, and then they're going to read and say, this boundary line needs to be relooked at. Not because they found something in the British archives, not because they found something that the Americans discovered, or somewhere along the line the UN had a document like that. A man from Venezuela said, some jiggery-pokery went on, you're gonna change about. So I think that boundary dispute is going to be settled once and for all. And no future Venezuelan government is going to invade Guyana because they didn't accept that. You know what that means?
I know.
That means in Africa, in Asia, in Central America, all over the world, a country is going to say, you know what? In the 17th century, that piece of land was rightfully ours, In fact, when you go back and you look at a history book written by this guy, that land had belonged to us. Look, Venezuela went over to Guyana and there's no longer Guyana. Let's go over.
And Freddie, it brings me to that point to say that if it doesn't go to the thing where we said, that Venezuela will not lay claims to Essequibo in the future, because if that doesn't happen, then we will be opening a can of worms that might not ever be able to contain by the world.
This whole thing is just a nagging nuisance. It's going to go away eventually. You and I may be older. I think it's going to be solved somewhere between 26 and 28. I believe by that time this ICJ should give the ruling.
Oh, so so it will not be something where it can happen within the next few months or whatever the case.
No, not according to the Vice President. He said he anticipates it will be after 2026.
Okay.
I want to believe that the 1899 ruling is final. At the same time, to bring the controversy to an end may take an opening of a can of worms. The real question will be, though, does the ICJ really want to spend the resources necessary to get involved in a 100-year controversy to settle this dispute once and for all? And I do not believe so. Now, with the present government of Venezuela, I can see the ICJ and the world waiting for a democratic leader of Venezuela before pursuing such a task. In this case, in returns for concessions to Venezuela from the world and not any part of Guyana, an agreement will be met where Venezuela will not lay claim to the Essequibo region for years to come or never again. But Freddie, my question to you is, how can Guyana protect itself in the future, military-wise? Should Guyana develop the Essequibo region and should Guyana develop the Essequibo region, giving Guyana faster access to the Essequibo region, or will we be creating a double-sided sword in that area by developing it and then, Venezuela laying claims again?
Well, I don't think that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah.
One, Guyana cannot say we would like to develop Essequibo. Guyana, by nature of its projection into the future, it has to develop Essequibo. Guyana cannot and will not think about a border dispute with Venezuela. There is no such dispute. Venezuela has stirred up a border controversy that doesn't exist for Guyana. It exists objectively. Anything could exist objectively. A man could come here with a cutlass running you. You don't know the man. You don't care about the man. But the reality is the man is running you with a cutlass. We don't care about Venezuela and its territorial ambitions. Our borders have been settled. So we got to go ahead and develop Essequibo, and I think that will be done. As to whether Venezuela would invade Guyana in violation of the ICJ ruling, anything is possible. But I don't think the world would allow a small country like Venezuela, I mean small, 33 million people, Pakistan, India, Indonesia, the Philippines, Egypt, Turkey, those are countries with hundreds of millions of people, 50 million, 60 million people. If they do something, there's a lot of powerful military might going into that. If Pakistan, 170-something million people with a huge armed forces, same with Indonesia. So I can understand that, but the world will not allow a country of 33 million people with a small armed forces compared to what you have in Africa. I mean, look at Nigeria. I mean, that's a big military power. I don't think the world going to allow any small country in a population of 10, 15, 20 million without a huge global military to just go about annexing people's territory. That is not the direction I think the world is going to go in. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, it's going on to 3 years now. I think Putin would have liked to go in, pull off a blitzkrieg, the German word meaning a quick victory. But I mean, Russian soldiers are dying and 3 years are going on and there's a fight going on there. Israel, perhaps this is the end of Israel occupation of Palestinian territory. After this genocide committed by Israel, the Palestinians will have their own state. So anything is possible, but I don't envisage a Venezuelan invasion of Guyana in my lifetime.
Okay. Freddie, we as a country, we've been, we really take people, that use this term say we've really taken a licking over the last couple of, months or weeks or whatever. We lost our servicemen tragically, But I want to ask you, Freddie, how do you grade the work of the Guyana government during this crisis?
Oh, I think we have a very, very thinking president, a president that strategizes politically. I think he's good at strategizing politically. And when you're good at strategizing politically, things fall in place. He went to the border, he slept with the soldiers. The army were given reinforcement. He was in touch with his people, his party, and his ministers found out around Guyana, introducing awareness. The man invited the opposition to the St. Vincent dialogue. I think Ali started out as a bit of an unknown. He was Minister of Housing, etc., etc. Maybe had another ministerial portfolio. But I think the Guyana was not prepared for this kind of Jagan-like figure and the directions he would go in. And from 2021, he began to show that he's a different president. And that kind of thinking is going to bring him success, and it has already done so on the international front in St. Vincent. I believe President Ali achieved a significant global diplomatic accomplishment.
Yeah, I think so too. And when you look at it, you look at what's something that really strikes me for the Freddie is the confidence that our president walks with. He has this country on his shoulder that is going through so much. And yet this man, when he walks, you can see, I look at him, when I'm a Muslim, I go to the masjid, he comes to the masjid there with his little son, and he's praying there and he's sitting in this masjid, and I look at him and I said, man, you got a lot on your shoulder, but you get up every day and you go do this. He has not shown any cower or anything like that to really, to say that it's too much, I can't deal with it,
I think his legacy is going to be the president in the field and not in office. When I first met him after he became president, these were my words to him. And you see it in other leaders, and there have been very few. You see it in other leaders. I think Obama had a little bit of it, but the first president of the Czech Republic had a bit of it. You go among the people, you have 20 ministers, they have to make sure that the police get vehicles, they have to make sure that there's no breakaway in Barbies with the sluice, and Barbies is not flooded. Your job is to go and meet people, solve things on the ground. Go and let people know who you are and what you stand for and what you mean. Go and deliver to people. And he's been doing that. That man will go to Plaisance, where they had people complaining that the community center break down. What Ali doing? What Ali doing? And he's going to go there, and he has a style. And I think that style is what I think even Dr. Jagan didn't have. I think maybe Dr. Jagan's right-hand man, Boise Ramkaran, had that style. But Jagan was a dentist, and he didn't have that kind of, or maybe he was too busy too, or maybe he didn't have it. But Ali comes from a very working class family that are a traditional PPP family. And he has this, what you call, down-to-earth style. He has a down-to-earth style that I don't think any other president had that. So this is a man that will go to a community center. Now Jagan will go to that community center, and Jagan will say, okay, fine. We will build this community center, make sure that it is looked after. And people say, yes, come Machedi. But Ali would go and say, this is the community center, all right. Sorry, it looked like that. Y'all got a point, but I can make a bigger point. I can fix this thing right away. Good? No, tell me what size you want. You want this community reshaped, you want some new, and that attracts people.
I know.
That attracts people. And early in my columns in 2020, I said, he's heading for a direction where he's going to leave a legacy, and we have to wait and see. Maybe equal or bigger than Chedi Jagan. Remember, Akash, there are no limits to human achievement.
Absolutely.
Gary Sober's record stayed for how long? A guy take 8 wickets in his debut. About 50 years after, somebody come and take 10. People, your human achievement is infinite. Human achievements are infinite.
believe
So,
so.
in as much as we like Jagan, and I don't think Ali would reach the stage of Jagan's contribution to the awakening of the third world and decolonization, because he didn't live in that
That's
age.
an era, that's a different
Good.
era, yeah.
And so Jagan cemented his legacy there and to a certain extent Burnham. But as to this all-embracing president that means well and have done things, I think by 2030 he may be the definitive president of Guyana.
I also, look, I was looking at it, I think it was yesterday morning. I woke up and I was doing my morning show. And after the show, I looked at it and I said, this is some situation, people are created for certain situations. People are made for situations. Our situations are made for certain people. Whatever it is though, this crisis that we are going through, and I call it a crisis because, people are worried and you have
The crisis is over there.
yeah, and I believe that President Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali was man-made for this moment, So he has the charisma, and I know that's a big thing for you, charisma. He has the charisma, he has the swag, he has the there's a photograph being circulated on the internet that's gone viral. I'm sure you've seen it, where the two of them are shaking hands, President Ali and President Maduro,
Joe is not looking at
and he's looking at dead in the eye, and he raised the armband on his arm to say, "This is mine," and he looks at him, and the man looks away.
Well, I think one of the interpretations of that is that he looks at the man and say, "Listen, this is how humans should operate. Smile and look at me."
Yeah,
Maybe that's a Freudian message he was trying to send over to Maduro. People should shake hands and look at each other and talk.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's the big man thing.
the man reached out his hand twice to Obi Norton.
That's right.
And Norton doesn't have the capacity to say, this guy is cool. Let me shake this guy on. I mean, this guy and no arrogant man, like man reach out, and that is one of his contribution, that lighten up, ease up. Human beings must appreciate each other.
But Freddie, on that point also, I have to give it to the opposition and the opposition leader in what is happening around us. Perhaps they hadn't, perhaps it has to happen that way. There is no other way to do it, but you know what? I have to give it to them. I have to give it to the opposition leader in his stance, in his pronouncements, and always saying that, we're standing with the government. This will not happen, not under anyone's watch.
But you have to praise them for that and plaudits for that. But the alternative is suicide.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I said. Perhaps it had to happen that way. There's no other way.
Water Street, this botanical garden, the University of Guyana, the NIS, the Bobby Smart House, the Georgetown Hospital, that belongs to those little children you see playing there. That doesn't belong to the PPP.
That's right.
So when that is in danger, Guyana is in danger. I mean, to play politics with your country, our finale in 70 to 80 years are gone. You and I are gone. But the botanical garden will be beautifully landscaped, and it belongs to those children here.
Yes.
So this is your country. I don't
is
see
beautiful. It is
how the some people did some stupid things, and I believe the police should have visited them. A man called G.K.H. Lal, who outlined the scenario how Venezuela will invade and why they will invade. And Glenn Lal said something how our beloved neighbor Venezuela, and Venezuela started to put that on video and show all over. But you got look, when I do the Freddie Kissoon Gildavi show, this call in, I always tell Gildavi, you can get people calling in and talking utter asinity. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
It's part of the society.
What you gonna do? They got people believe that Obia men put Ali in power, Obia men put Granger in power, and then I call you and tell you that I get all kinds of calls about people. This Venezuela conflict was engendered by two Guyanese that have access to the CIA. And these people are just normal people with normal jobs. The people talk nonsense. Akash, you want to see nonsense? come and see my email, the things people ask you to publicize, to think about.
Well, share one of the most comical ones with me, man.
I think a guy said to me, Mr. Kissoon, can you send us your CV? We would like to have you on board. We plan to invest about 50 million American dollars in Guyana. 50 million American, no company has invested. Even Exxon would be just above that 50 billion.
50 billion?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're bringing 50 billion to Guyana. Please send us your CV because we mean business. And I just emailed, thank you, sir. I want no part of that.
$50 billion is 10% of the entire market value of ExxonMobil. Just to let you know, because there are 500 billion. So, but Freddie, look, let me ask you this. I mean, it's coming up to the holiday season, right? It's coming up to Christmas. Next weekend is the Christmas Eve. You know, downtown is busy and all of that. And you know how it is for Guyanese, but what message, now that this peace agreement has happened and Christmas come, what message do you have for Guyanese people at this point?
I had 3 bad experiences, and I would appeal to Guyanese people to, you know, let other people know about these things. Akash, you cannot blame the president of Guyana if the garden is falling apart. The president has about 20 ministers. This falls under a minister.
Right.
My advice to the president and his cabinet and the people of Guyana are the following. I had 3 bad experiences this week. And these things should not happen in the country. I don't blame the president, but I would like him to listen. I went to collect that one-off pension. I mean, why not? The government was giving $25,000 to people who are over 65. All I had to do is collect it. Yeah, all I had to do is go and collect it. I went with my wife to collect it, and when I see that humiliation, you know, but 500 people, no confusion, no line, no police shouting
Chaos.
and people. You cannot treat senior citizens like that. And that was only for 3 districts, just 3 districts.
Wow.
Right, Turkine, Sophia, and another. That was just right. So those things should not happen. The second thing that happened that should not happen, cannot happen, must stop right now. A friend called me to say he's in the lockup at Diamond for failing to stop observe a sign. And immediately I know that's a ticketable offense.
Yes.
So I said, where is the officer? She said, the lady said the officer brought the man here. I am not traffic. But I was talking to the lady through my friend's phone. I said, well, can I have a number for Diamond so I can lodge a complaint? She said, there's no number for Diamond. I rang Diamond. They said they only have a number for inquiries. They can put you on to CID or put you on to traffic. I rang the commander that is in charge of the whole area, and he said Diamond doesn't have a telephone.
What?
I know you're going to follow with it, with the other one. A lady called, I get these human rights complaints all the time. A lady called to say her son went into Anna Regina police station for a police clearance. Had all his requirements, but they asked for a passport. But I know it's birth certificate, ID.
Yeah.
I got the telephone directory in Regina, 3 numbers to Anna Regina. And the operator, GTT operator, said, sorry, that number is no longer in service. Anna Regina has no landline. So right now, if something happened in Anna Regina with your family and you want to ring the police to say there was a big violent scene involving my family right at Anna Regina police station, could you tell? You can't. Now those type of things I would appeal to Guyanese people. You know, to the more you talk about that, the more the powers that be know, and they correct it. If you don't talk about these things, the second thing, this is now to the government, and I would hope that as the years go on, that we pump money into the country that would see a leveling off of class distinctions. where people who are at the bottom feel that there's a future for them. I think all money is going in that direction. I would like it to maintain in that direction.
I know that you know, we worked together before at on a different different place, and I know that you've always been talking about classism, but at what if you want to touch on it very because we'll discuss another topic, but at what level it exists right now in Guyana, Freddie?
Well, there are always classes in Guyana, and I think there are people at the lower level that could be elevated, and we must understand that they could be elevated and they should be elevated.
Yes.
I think President Ali and our petrodollar economy are going to go in that direction. All I want to do is to repeat it, that we must not, even for a second, you know, falter in that direction.
Agreed. Freddie, look.
Is there anything else you want to, any other topic that you want to touch on before we close?
Yeah, I just want to wish Guyanese wish them well in the Christmas season coming in. I'm not a big supporter of Christmas. I'm not a very religious person, but I grew up with my family supporting Christmas. Not the conflict is over, not to worry, go about your business, as if there wasn't the entry of Maduro into Guyana's mind from November to December.
Okay.
And also to give the government a chance in reaching out and embracing diversity. I am an appreciator of the politics of President Ali, and I have unlimited respect for the qualities of Anil Nandalal. I happen to know Anil Nandalal up close and personal. And I think for me, Anil Nandalal is one of the best politicians in this world. And I want to reiterate that, that's no exaggeration. I think Anil Nandalal is one of the best intentioned politicians in this world. So I'd just like to ask Guyanese to give this young man, President Ali, a chance. If he falters, then open your mouth. But if he's doing the right thing, you need to support him.
My car wasn't working yesterday, so I had to take a taxi. And I was sitting with a young guy of African descent in the car, and we were talking. And you know, he said to me, he said, you know, before this whole thing here, I didn't really like President Ali, you know. But he said, when I look at what the president is doing for this country, this whole thing here, the man says, I think that this is a man for all the people, because he's standing up for all of Guyana.
You know, there's a movie called A Man for All Seasons,
A Man for All Seasons,
which was about the overthrow of the British monarchy by Oliver Cromwell.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll do a documentary,
Yes.
A Man for All Seasons.
We have
So
to.
we have to, that's a good one. And me and you will narrate that documentary. Freddie, you know, there's one thing I got to talk to you about before we close off. Cricket. Have you followed the West Indies cricket recently? What's happening with them?
I know they won the 2 one-days, but that should not give you hope.
But the one
A
team
great,
20s
a great country that didn't make the World Cup.
England.
It's the West Indies. England made the World Cup.
Yeah, they made the World Cup. That's right.
A
Yes.
great country that didn't make the World Cup is in serious question about its existence.
But do you think then, when you look at this young team, look, they got this boy from Berbice, Godakesh Moti.
Yeah, it's a good spin.
In a 2020 game, this man bore 4 overs for 9 runs, not a 6, not a 4. 4 overs, 9 runs. And when you look at the other guy, Romario Shepherd didn't play in this last game, you look at all the batters and everybody, well, our boy is, you know, he doesn't seem to be Shimron Hetmeyer.
Yeah, he's very inconsistent.
yeah. But when you look at the makeup of this team, do you believe that this is the team? Because it's a young team, do you believe?
No, I don't. I don't.
You
I
think
think
it's a team for the future?
no. I think
Okay.
West Indies cricket has very deep fundamental structural problems, and you should not get up in some cloud because they won something here and they won something there. No, you may very well be brought down to earth when Ireland visit here and Ireland beat us. So you should keep your fingers crossed. Don't get blown away by 1 or 2 successes.
Yeah.
West Indian cricket has more holes than a greater.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys that I'm keeping my eyes out on. There's one youngster, he's in South Africa with the A team, Shamar Joseph, decent pacer from Berbice. There's a guy who gave up his job as a security guard to pursue cricket as a full-time career because he believed he can do it. And there's another boy named Isaiah Thorne.
Well, a soldier did that in Jamaica, you know. Sheldon Cottrell was a
yes,
soldier.
yes, yes.
Now he's probably very rich.
The man that does the salute.
Yeah.
Oh,
One of my favorite cricketers.
Oh, really?
I like him.
Yeah. Who's your top 3 cricketers right now in the world?
My top 3 cricketers. I think most humans, when they answer those questions, that kind of question, whether it's entertainment, whether it's acting, you tend to answer that question with a cultural bias.
I agree.
You always, it's like it's there, and it
yeah.
prevents you from being objective. I would say my favorite cricketer is the man with the mohawk thing from Jamaica, Russell.
Andre Russell.
Yeah. I would say he's my favorite cricketer. I like our boy Hetmeyer. I think he has potential. And thirdly, I like that guy who came from humble beginning in the Essequibo, Paul.
Chemo. That's my neighbor. My favorite cricketers right now, I would want to say is I like David Warner, the little dynamo out of South Africa, out of Australia.
You're more objective than me, but Russell comes first, second, third, fourth.
I like David Warner. The guy has, little dynamo. He really does well.
That man was involved in cheating, you know.
Yeah, I know he was involved in cheating. Yeah.
It's not that he was 18 years old and didn't know better. That was just 3 years ago.
Yes, I know. He's Stephen Smith and the other guy who got
Payne.
Yeah, and Bancroft, who can't even make the team again.
Bancroft?
Yeah, Cameron Bancroft.
There wasn't a guy named Payne?
Tim Payne. I think, no, the 3 of them was Cameron Bancroft, Stephen Smith, and this guy who got the thing. And now Bancroft can't even get a space in the team. But I like David Warner. I like this guy out of India, Ravindra Jadeja.
Yeah, he's a good all-rounder.
Yeah, and yes, Chemo Paul.
Do you know, if we're going to end this program as on cricket, cricket has produced some funny things. Do you know India has an IPL player named Harshit?
Harshit, yes.
Yeah, you know that Harshit.
Yeah, I know you got Harshit.
Right.
Yeah.
Harshit,
yeah. One named Dodo Punani, you know.
And right, and they got one named Bati Rider.
Bati Rider?
Yeah, it's Bati Rider or Bati Raidu?
I'm Bati Raidu, man.
I'm Bati, well, anyway.
Yeah, you get Bati
anyway, Harshit plays the Kolkata Knight Riders.
Yeah. But you know what?
And it is spelled S-H-I-T.
Yeah, I know, but you see what happened?
As I spoke to you when you did the first one.
No, the English.
Right.
The English taxpayer named Bati.
Yeah. There was a guy from England that played him, Gareth Batty.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it, yeah.
But we have to understand that our language and our dialect and so on, in colloquial terms, we tend to use certain words to describe.
My name is spelled
I understand,
S-H-I-T.
but you need to research, Freddie. See what Harshit really means in Hindi.
I know
It probably means something good.
Yeah. It's probably Hindu word meaning something.
Yes. So Freddie Kissoon, thank you so much for joining me today.
man.
Thank you so much, Freddie. Have a wonderful
Anytime.
Christmas and enjoy your holidays. Anything in closing?
If you know anybody that has garlic pork available, bring some in a foil around by my home.
All right. I hope these I hope the 2 cameramen and the 2 young ladies here are listening to you, and they will get it for you also. All right. Sit down. So, folks, thank you so much again for joining us today, Guyana in Conversation with Akash and Freddie. It was a wonderful conversation. We love this outdoor space here in the Botanical Gardens. There are lots of children out here today. There was a lot of picnics. Somebody was having some KFC across there earlier, and when they were doing that, it kind of raised my got me going. So I kind of hungry right now. Freddie, I hope you get your garlic pork for Christmas, and let me see what I can grab before now in the afternoon too. So thank you so much, folks, for joining us. We'll see you again. Bye.
Guyana TV network.